And welcome back to AR's Tales, aka the ART podcast. I am Armina Bala, and today I am joined by Adrian Santiago.
What's up,
Few
brother?
times, few times that we have fellow Spanish brothers in here, man. Uh,
It's always nice, isn't it, when a fellow Islander or any other Latino is
yup,
actually doing something that you love and care about and are doing too.
yup. My God, and honestly, just the moment you said that, I immediately just my mind blasted off on just the difference between Spanish and Latin, and just
Oh
how
man,
it is growing up with that and not
yeah.
even understanding anything. And then you go to school and you're learning history, and it's like the whitewashed version of like history, and you're just learning XYZ. Like, oh, okay.
Have
But
you watched John Leguizamo's
yes, 100%.
Latin History for
Yes,
Morons? Oh
yes,
my
yes,
God,
yes.
bro! I learned so much.
I can't tell you his little thing. And it's kind of funny because he made himself kind of just like such a payaso in that whole thing, and he made it very purposely. It was basically a
Well,
stand-up.
he's a comedian, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you've ever seen his one man shows before,
No.
but they're oh my God, bro. He did a one man show like I think maybe 10 years before the one we're talking about. I forget what it's called, but he literally went through like costume changes. Like he came out in a dress when he was playing his mother. Like this, and you saw him dance on that on the
Yeah.
special that we're talking about. So like think about him like in full drag, imitating his mother, telling a story about his youth, and like, bro, it's insane. All the character voices he does, he's incredible. Like, check it out again. I forget what it's called, but look him up on IMDb and you'll find it. Like, it's worth the watch for sure.
Yeah, he's always really been his roles are just everywhere. He's such a multifaceted act. I remember the
Yeah,
first one of the first movies I ever known of him when like he was young. He looked like he was in his 20s and he played a drag queen.
yeah.
Uh
Uh, you, what movie was that? I know that movie. Was that the same one with Wesley Snipes in
man,
it?
I think yes. And he was also
Um,
a drag queen.
yeah, they were all. I think there was a couple different actors in it. There,
Man,
I forget what that one's called
it
too. But yeah,
became a
I've
cult
seen that one.
classic. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh man,
Um,
that is great.
and then think about him as the clown in Spawn. He's in the full like clown makeup, the whole bodysuit. He plays like a demon clown. It's insane. His range is crazy.
Oh my God. But before we delve any further into that,
Yeah, we're gonna go down a rabbit hole.
yeah, where can people find you?
Right on, man.
You're also not only a fellow indie author on live on the Instagram are you big on the Twitter?
I am not very big on the Twitter. I gave Twitter a shot, but it's such a hurricane in there, man. I can't make heads or tails of anything.
That is
I'm too
perfect
old.
example.
I can't figure
Yeah.
out Twitter. It's and I remember when Twitter was very, very simple and easy. And now like you go in and like regardless of who I follow, the feed is just madness. I just have no idea what's going on in there. So I try to stay away from Twitter, to be honest with you. But I'm big on Instagram. You can find me at Books by Adrian with underscores. But the easiest way is to just go to booksbyadrian.com, and all my links are right across the top, from my YouTube channel to my Instagram to the podcast, which should be making a comeback very soon. The blog is on there. You can read a sample chapter. Patreon is on there. Like it's all one stop shop. Booksbyadrian.com.
Yes, definitely. Now, and Books by Adrian is also his YouTube page where he has
Correct.
live streams and podcast and just great discussions with other authors. Highly recommended. Another brother kind of just talking to
You were on an
all the
episode of
authors.
Live Stream Sundays. You were on an
Yes,
episode of season one, what I now consider season one. I didn't know I was doing seasons, but you were in season one.
that's awesome. Yeah, I believe our talk was about
It was drug culture. Yeah,
drug culture.
drug culture in fiction. Yeah.
Yeah,
What we've seen, what we want to see. We talk all about that stuff because both of our works have drug culture elements in it.
yeah.
So
Mine has very kind of like I talked about it in your podcast. Mine has very simple, almost just like comparative to like high school kids smoking a joint type of stuff.
exactly, yeah. Mine gets a little more psychedelic. Like my characters take full on mushroom trips, and you take them with them as the reader. So
Yeah,
it gets the prologue alone gets pretty intense.
yeah, that's awesome. I get into that more in the second book when they start kind of like unlocking the true potential of that little plant. Now,
right on.
and again, further, before we go for too much further, I would be remiss to not mention your book coming out.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And I actually have the little thing right here, just so I can show people the website as well. Oh, Christ almighty.
I forget, is this going to be audio only or is it video as well? Is it video
It is
podcast?
video as well, yeah.
Right on, right on. Cool. Visual aids is always nice. All right, what's this?
Books by Adrian. This is your website?
All right, all right. Yeah, that's my website. So right there at the top, there's a flash fiction contest going on right now. I might as well pause and tell you guys about that because it's actually really cool.
Do.
If any of your audience is writing, this is an awesome little contest that I came up with. I just about slapped myself when I came up with this idea. So the idea is that you write a flash fiction story, anything under 800 words. Anything above that gets disqualified. I'm looking for the most emotional story that I can get in such a short time frame. And the reason I'm looking for the most emotional story is because the prize of this contest is that a musician is going to score your story. So we'll do a reading of it, like an audiobook version of your story. He will score it. And he's going to actually do that live on our live stream Sunday in May. He's going to score it live in front of everybody, show everybody teach us all about storytelling through music and how a score elevates a story. And then eventually I'll put up the full video with, little animations that I'm going to make. Again, the reading reading out loud, and then the score all together. So a big, video production for the winner. That's the deadline is April, I want to say 15th. Yeah, April 15th. So get them in by April 15th. You can go straight to this website right here. And AR, if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see that there's a button where they can submit. And that is already outfitted with my email, the correct subject line. And literally all you have to do is attach the file and hit send. And that's it. Send me a story and I'm going to have judges and it's going to be a lot of fun.
That's awesome. I might as well throw my hat in there. I have a short story that's like 300 words, little crappy thing I wrote back in the day.
That's perfect. That's the perfect length. Hit it. Send it in. Let's see what's up.
And these are the live stream Sundays that we were just talking about?
Yeah, this is the one that you see real big there is the one that we did last week with Barrett Laurie. We were talking about LGBTQ representation in fiction, and he went full historian with it. So he brought us, details of the LGBTQ representation throughout the last 3 decades, and we talked about where it's going after that, which is pretty cool. I do these, topics for my live stream Sundays because I'm trying to point out things that people can expect to find in my books. And if these are things that interest you, it will hopefully attract you to read my book. And one of the things that my book can boast is having LGBTQ characters in lead roles. And so that's what that episode is all about. But we also did one all about, story structure. We did an interview with Nina Moreno, who's an amazing YA author. And this Sunday, we're talking to a marketing genius. This dude has an MBA in marketing. He's going to teach us about marketing so we can market our own books. So that's the kind of stuff that you can find on live stream Sundays on my channel. It's at 4 p.m. every Sunday. And I might skip major holidays, like there's not going to be an episode on Easter Sunday, but otherwise every Sunday, 4 p.m., you can expect something really awesome on my channel. And it's easy to find, youtube.com/books by Adrian.
Hell yeah, man. I'm telling you, that's one of the main things that you got to just love about the writing community and just the industry as itself, I mean, rap beef is a big thing about rap. I think we talked about our love of rap before. I don't even think it was recorded. It was just a thing that we taled about.
It might have been off the air, yeah.
Yeah, it might have been off the air. But rap beef is a big thing. Can you imagine if there was writer beef? It's like we live we work in the exact opposite industry. It's complete, just like amping one another up. It's awesome.
What's kind of funny is that you can I have quiet writer beef, which is I turn on my competitive side, like when contests come up and stuff like that, I'm like, I'm gonna win this thing. I'm gonna, write the best story. And I just like get competitive with it, even though I'm not actually competing with anybody. I don't, I don't hate any of these guys. Like, I actually want them to succeed as much as I want myself to succeed. But there's something about like giving yourself like that psychological edge of like, yeah, man, I'm gonna get them.
Definitely. Just especially when it comes time for release day, of the of like a book or anything like that. It's like, you have to have that hat on, or at least have it in your arsenal ready to go,
Waiting for the numbers and everything.
Yeah,
It's a whole thing.
Now, I almost just about forgot it. The book title coming soon. Now, what was the date for the book? It's The Shadow of the Spark. It's a sci-fi and you just go, as you mentioned it before, it's a kitchen sink.
Yeah, it's kind of kitchen sinky. I basically broke all the rules that everybody tells you not to break on your first novel. I'm writing a huge epic. It's got multiple main characters. You're not supposed to do either of those things for your first novel, but I'm doing it. It's a sci-fi fantasy world, so there's sci-fi, but there's also magic. It's very kind of Star Warsy in the middle ground that it plays with there. But the aesthetic is way more, like kind of Blade Runner-y and like grungy and it's a murder mystery. We're following like a detective as one of our main characters, like trying to solve this murder mystery, and then the other main characters are somehow involved in the case and interwoven through the story. But yeah, it's Shadow of the Spark is the first book in the Mythic trilogy, and that comes out in December if I make all my deadlines, which I'm already behind on the one for this month. But you know how that goes.
I hear you. My God, do I hear you? I'm in an editing round right now, which is like the amount of, like, if you were to edit together the amount of times on the podcast that I said just finish editing, it would just sound like the most just finish like, dated and numbered the amount of times. My ticket would at least be like 100 times. It's unreal. But I think it's something that you probably know. The paranoia of finding one little error is enough to just make you want to go through the entire thing over again. Entire thing.
It just happened to me today. I sent chapters to a new critique partner, and she read the first three. She read the first 3 chapters, and she's giving me her notes or whatever. And then I open up the 4th chapter today just to like skim through it. And I'm finding all these errors and stuff that I could have sworn I had edited this thing 7 times already. So I'm going through and I'm editing it again, trying to stay ahead of my critique partner before she gets to it today. And it's just like, Jesus, like it's never ending, man. Writing is just editing and rewriting.
It's unreal. It truly, it never ends. The amount of times.
Curious how it ends, like how do you get to the point where you're like, this book is done, it's going to stores, like what are you talking about? It's never done.
If I can be completely honest, I find edits in traditionally published, phenomenally well distributed books often, and it's almost that like the way that people think of indie authors, that like one error is gonna mean like, they're gonna throw your book into the fire and they're never gonna hear about you again.
It's not like that.
Yeah, every time I see an error, it almost feels like when you get like a poster or you buy something official and it's just like something's wrong. You buy a Coca-Cola and the like the thing is like to the side. For whatever reason, it feels like more special, right? Because it's like, oh, it's a little messed up.
I kind of know what you mean, because like I recently was rereading one of my favorite books, American Gods. And it's by Neil Gaiman, one of the greatest writers of our time.
Oh my
God! I'm reading through it,
Good
and
Omens?
I'm fine. Oh, dude,
it's not fair.
And so I'm reading American Gods again, and I'm finding like typos and stuff in it. And I'm
typos?
Like, yeah, like little typos, like a couple. And it's like, and it's this big, thick book, and it has beautiful engravings. In fact, where is it? Like I have it around here somewhere. And it's just like this, it has engravings on the front, and the pages are thin, like a Bible. It's like this beautifully presented work of art, this book. And as I'm reading it, I'm finding typos, and I actually found it endearing. Like, okay, nobody's perfect. Like even Neil Gaiman and his editors miss these things. Like it's okay. Let's all just take a step back.
Yeah, especially traditional published. I mean, people forget. One of my favorite. I mean, it's something that I feel not a lot of people know until you have to get here. But like even when people say, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna give it to an editor," so that phrase is a little mistreated. There's like 5 stages of editing.
Oh, dude, over
and
and like over
and
again.
you have to go and you have to get all of them. It's not one of those things like you can like necessarily like pick and choose. You basically have to do all of it. There's the format editor, there's line editor,
And not only do you have to do it,
developmental editor,
but
proofreader.
if not only do you have to do it, but if you really want your book to be good and worthy of being on those bookshelves, you can't just go to your buddy. Like you got to go to a professional editor and you got to shell out the dough, man. Like you got
and multiple passes, honestly.
It's freaking expensive. I haven't even gotten to that stage yet, and I've just been looking at pricing and I'm looking at my word count and I'm like, how can I like cut this book in half? This is way too much.
I'm telling you, to the point that like it almost wants to make you want to rip your hair out, which
oh man,
definitely this week you would definitely be the more losing party compared to me. But
yeah.
But, like it almost makes you think, it's like, wait, why is anybody writing? Obviously everybody needs to be in editing. That's where the money is. Like, especially when you do, all right, so this is when it gets a little serious, you know. That's when the
that's
rain
where the
starts
money
falling.
is. You're right, that's where the money is.
You know, like, and honestly, if we can break down some math, right? Average indie book release, like lifespan of distribution, is usually 350 books. Average for like first book, you know, you don't have a serialization, average 350.
Yeah.
Now you do 350, let's say that you get $10, which honestly unlikely that you're doing it for $10. Usually it's like $5, but we'll say $10 at 350, so you make 3,500, right?
Oh, boy,
now
you're getting into the math now.
Now editing passes. By the time everything's done, a book cost about $2,000 to $3,500. So by the time everything's done, your editor made more money than you off of like, and you're sitting back like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
I'm going to try really hard not to think about that much further than what you just said, because that's very depressing. That's extremely depressing.
Yeah, that's where my head's at. It's just like, that's just the math. Well, the thing is that like, I think,
but here's the thing.
Yeah,
they're editing and they're making their money. They really are. But at the end of the day, they're not telling their story. They're telling somebody else's. So that's where I'm coming from. I want to tell my story.
Exactly. Honestly. But the thing is, I guess everything is like multiple phases. I think when it can be depressive when you look at it that way, but it can be inspirational because it's just like, all right, I have a lot of work ahead of me. This isn't like something I can just like pussyfoot. I can't mess around at all.
Yeah.
I really have to go in hard, or you know, it's gonna be it.
Yeah, go hard or go home.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's either like, you know, to break even or like make like $50.
I hear that, man.
But I guess it's just like the beauty of like the struggling artist. You know what I mean? Van Gogh died penniless, and then, you know, his things are selling for hundreds of millions of dollars. It just kind of, it's the route we choose with art sometimes, you know.
Anytime anybody brings that up, I always think of that episode of Doctor Who.
Yes.
Oh, dude, it makes me cry every time. Every time.
This is my mouse pad.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about, then. You know what I'm talking about. Dude, I cry every time I see it. I watch, sometimes I throw it up on YouTube just to like, just to relive that moment, man. That moment's crazy.
A big one for me is like, I'm a huge engineering nut. So Nikola Tesla, I mean, like, he gets a lot of respect now, but like, you know, I would say 50 years after he died, that's hurt, man. I mean, he just, like, the amount of genius that he had, and he just got, you know, washed out completely by just like the business mind of Edison at the time, you know, in general,
his feud with Edison.
Electric, yeah. It was just unreal.
My favorite Tesla thing is his
tell me the earthquake machine.
The earthquake? No, I was gonna say his appearance as a character in The Prestige. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Oh yes, I have. Yeah, Nolan. I have. Yeah.
He's like a wizard in that movie that creates like an actually like magic sci-fi machine or whatever that clones people. It's like crazy, and I'm like, dude, that's a real person. Like that was a real person that existed. Wouldn't it be nuts if he could actually do stuff like that?
Man, that's why I love historical fiction. You know.
Yeah.
Just and doesn't even have to be like a huge it doesn't have to be like, you know, Man on Castle level where it's like you're rewriting major events of history, but just little things like that you just like make your own complete fantasy, and then you just tie in, oh, and yeah, by the way, you know, John Hamm is in this book. Oh, how is John Hamm in here? Oh, whatever. I was actually just thinking about a joke, because like my series is kind of like delves into like the whole like multiple universe and reality type of things.
Sure.
And I was thinking of a joke that when one of the characters is talking to like a person that has more of a knowledge of the other dimensions and whatnot, they're talking about man, who's the random actor that I picked? I think I picked like either Keanu Reeves or Tom Hardy. I picked either
Okay.
one of them, and I was like and like they made like the more secular guy makes a reference to Tom Hardy, and the guy goes, "This universe has Tom Hardy," and he responds, "Every universe has Tom Hardy."
He's a nexus being. He's the same in all.
I remember
in
it was
all,
Josh. I thought Tom Hardy at first, but then I switched it to Josh Brolin because I was gonna say every universe has Josh Brolin. He's inevitable. And it was gonna be like a nice little like tie-in.
I like it. I like it. Inevitable. Yeah.
Now, to the background, I usually go into the background of how you got writing to begin with. How did that writing bug hit you? Was it something that hit you when you were young? Is it something that hit you when you were more matured and kind of just tried it out?
I mean, I suppose I've always been writing different things. I would go through like phases of like what kind of writing I was doing. So like I wrote a lot of like really, really terrible poetry in high school. And then I got into writing music. I wrote songs. I was playing in like a punk band, trying to get chicks or whatever. So I was writing songs, and I did that for a while. And then I think at some point my sister went to school for creative writing, and she was getting her degree in creative writing. She wrote a script, and I read her script. I actually gave her the idea for the story, and I read her script, and it was amazing, and it made me angry that I didn't write it because it was originally my idea to begin with. So it bugged me, and I was like, I should be right. So I tried writing scripts. I found that I'm not a huge fan of the format of a screenplay or a film script. So then I started playing with like, well, what do I like to write? So then I tried writing a graphic novel, and I'm still going to come back to that someday, but I wasn't quite ready for that either. And then I landed on this a few years ago, and I started working on this novel in earnest, like just before quarantine began. I started working on this novel. So it's a little over a year at this point.
Man, that's interesting. I feel like I have a kind of a similar background. You know what I mean? And that like my first thing, I actually didn't jump into screenplay because I guess it was I just didn't know of it. Yeah, like I had never read a screenplay. I've read books all my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when my first thing was immediately like, oh, I want to direct, but like, oh, I don't have money. Oh, I wanna make graphic novels. Oh, but I don't have like a full-time, artist panel behind me in order to like do that.
It was me too. I wanted to direct too. I'm just exactly like that.
You know what I mean? And then
I can't direct, so like, can I act? There's no, I'm
exactly. Like
making movies.
You're doing everything, all the math in your head, and basically all the math requires other people. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, to act, I need a group of people. To direct, I need even bigger group of people. To make a graphic novel, I need at least 2 people, and the other person needs to be just as dedicated as I am, which is hard.
Yeah.
And then you boil it down. It's like, oh, writing, being an author. That's one-on-one. I can just do that by myself, knock it out.
That's how I landed on it too, because I started working on this graphic novel with a group of buddies. We formed like this little writer's room, and we, crafted the entire story, and we had like this epic, like 3 volume series. And they were like, all right, so everything is plotted. We have all the index cards. The whole thing is plotted out. We have an artist lined up. All right, Adrian, you're up. Write the scripts. And I was like, and they're like, dude, this was your idea. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll write the scripts. And dude, like years later, I'm still like trying to figure out how to write scripts. So I'm for comic books or whatever. And when we went into making that particular graphic novel series, it's a series called Dusk, and we're going to come back to it eventually. But when we started it, we kind of made a pact with each other that we were making a graphic novel that belongs on the shelf next to Watchmen and The Dark Knight Returns and The Sandman. Like it needs to be that. You know what I mean? And if it's not that, there's no point in writing. And so here I am, like writing these scripts, never having written a story before. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not good enough to write this yet. Like what we want this to be is amazing, and I don't have it. Like I don't have that skill yet. So this is going on the back burner. We're gonna take a break from that, and I'm gonna do something one-on-one that their reputation is not going to be, reliant on the quality of my works. You know what I mean? They're not gonna get judged for my work because I'm not doing that yet. I'm going to do this for me by myself, just me. If it fails, that's on me. If it succeeds, that's on me. And that's where the whole like novel thing came from. And it's funny because you said that you read books all your life. It makes sense, and that's what cracks me up because I love reading novels. I've read novels all my life, and it never occurred to me to write a novel. And once I did, I was like, why didn't I start this sooner? Like, how did I not know that this was what I wanted to do? I read novels all the time. It never occurred to me that you could actually write one.
I'm telling you, it actually kind of had like a thought a couple days ago. It's unreal how much literature can affect your entire life if you let it. Like Catch 22, right? Which is a book originally, but it became like a kind of a commonly used phrase. Now think about it. We don't have a word for Catch 22, which if you ask me, Catch 22 is one of the most significant like elements of human life. Almost everything in life is a Catch 22. You come
that
in
book
thinking
created
X.
that term. Yeah.
Exactly. Think about it. And
Yeah.
that's such a like, if you ask me, like, if I would have been like in my 20s when that book came out and I read it for the first time, I think my head would have exploded. Because it's like, how did I live with a world without knowing this phrase, without understanding that element? I'm just like, yeah, all of life is a Catch 22. You come in thinking X, and then 3 years later, life says, come here. and now you're thinking why, and that's it. You just change, and like, and it's beautiful. There's nothing depressing about it. It's almost awesome that you can be like so wrong so often. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That you can believe in yourself for something so heavily and then be just so hilariously wrong within 5 years. You know,
a big one is becoming a parent. I mean, when I first became a parent, one of the first things I did was I went back to my dad and I apologized for every horrible thing that I had ever done that caused them stress, because I was like, dude, I get it now. At the same time, the first time I held my son, I'm a very peaceful person. I'm a very, laid back, chill, stonery kind of dude. It takes a lot to set me off. Like I'm chill, but I held my son for the first time and I was like, oh, I understand every murder that's ever been committed now. Like I understand that if anybody comes near my kid, hurts my kid, I'm going to jail because I'm going to kill that motherfucker. Like I knew it. You know what I mean? Like it was just this crystallizing moment where life was like, hey man, you thought you knew yourself. No, check this out. Like it's bananas how that happens, man.
My God, just in that phrase, you kind of just like brought me back to how amount of times that life just hit me with a pie, and I was just like, oh, that's how I'm gonna act in that situation. I did not know that. You know what I mean?
And the image of the world hitting you in the face with a pie, I love it.
Yeah, it's like okay, and then like
you got it. Thanks. That's in the eye. Okay.
If I could be honest, I guess a lot of times where you think, especially like when you kind of just like shit on yourself often, it's like, oh, if this happens, I'll shit myself, and then like and then it happens, and then you just like you're actually calm, and then you kind of and then like you're almost like having an out of body experience, because you're like, wait a minute, I shouldn't be this calm. I should be freaking out, like I said in the past, or like like things should be going like weird. Which again, Catch 22. How did we go so far without understanding that principle? Like that's literature. You know what I mean?
That's what it does, man.
Lemony
opens up the world.
I'm telling you, Lemony Snicket had a quote, and I'm gonna butcher it, but it was something along the lines of, "There are people that can read The Art of War and think nothing more of it than a simple war drama. And there are people that can read the back of a mac and cheese box and understand the secrets of the universe." And it's just like, yeah, that is exactly how things are. Like certain people can just read, the most phenomenal inspirational poetry by, Robert Frost. It just breaks down, or even like a Norman Rockwell painting that like it just like kind of like captures the essence of like American life in like the 70s or the 60s or wherever. And there are people that can sit back and just like, oh, look how the face is painted. You can tell X, Y, Z, blah, blah. And there are other people that goes like, yeah, I like how the background is like yellow or whatever. You know what I mean? That's it. That's as far as they go. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just, again, it's the beauty of life.
It's a really nice yellow. I really like that yellow.
Oh,
It's like,
yeah.
all right, man. Whatever makes you happy, dude. Like, go for it.
Dude, I'm not gonna name who, but there was somebody, a friend of mine that was looking at. I'm not gonna name who. Like anybody ever here is gonna meet him, but yeah, there's the painting behind me. I had like a couple friends over, and they were like looking at it when it first like was done, and like, you know, we're talking about XYZ and whatnot. Then we start cracking on one of my friends because he doesn't like art and is like kind of just like art illiterate, as like we're like making fun of him for and whatnot. And then homie just goes like, no, that's not true. I like art. Like, for example, I mean, like, I look how it looks like a rainbow, you know? He said it just like that. I was like, all right, guy, come on. You at least heard what we were saying. You couldn't bullshit something off of that.
Dude, I mean, for some people, that's the extent of it, man. Like like that quote from your friend reminds me of that short video that went viral a few years ago. Some dude goes outside and sees a double rainbow and just loses his mind about it being a double rainbow. And he's actually asking, what does it mean? And I'm like, dude, it's a rainbow. It means that light went into a drop of water and like came out the other side. Like that's what it means. But you know, like you said, some people read that box of mac and cheese and they're like, oh, I understand the entire universe now. It's like, yeah, well, you know.
Oh my God. There's supposedly back in the day, people used to die from heart attacks when there was a solar solstice because
they didn't understand
they had no understanding of what was happening. And imagine, it makes sense. Imagine if you had no scientific background and you look up to the sky and the sun's black.
Yeah.
And you're doing math. You're like, wait a minute. No, yeah, yellow every day, but it's black today. You're talking to your homies. It was yellow yesterday, right? Like, no, yeah, yellow. And you're like, huh, okay.
Yeah.
You talk to your shaman, right? Like, which is like, you know, like talking to like Neil deGrasse Tyson back in the day, right? It's like, yo, homie, what's going on? He's over here, like, doing like all whatever the amount of drugs he wants to do. He's over there like, hey, listen, man. We're gonna die. It is the
we're all gonna die.
It is the snakehead god. He is mad. You know, yesterday we ate a goat and we didn't cut the horns off properly, and that's what we did. We fucked up.
Yeah.
Somebody took a shit and they faced northwest when they did it. They should have faced northeast. We're done. You know.
Over.
Now,
game over.
That kind of brings it to a next kind of idea with religion, like just like people's faith in life and just like in personal beliefs drives everything of what they see and just the environment, almost to the point that has like almost physical ramifications about your environment, right? Because you just seclude yourself and just like make sure you almost like live in like an echo chamber. All the people around you are like about it. And then something happens outside of that group and you're like, oh, wait a minute, that's not happening in real life.
Yeah.
Which I guess we're all in trouble for. I guess we all do it, just like those bigger and smaller amounts. But how do you think that plays into writing itself? Like, how do you meld that into writing into like religion, like people's faith?
I do. It's another huge aspect of my novel, actually. The detective character, the main character that we're following, has a lot of religion in her past. And she has a very, very aggressive kind of relationship with the religion in her past. And this killer that she's hunting, it's not necessarily that he's got a religious theme to him or anything like that, but his victims definitely seem to have some sort of religious pattern in their qualities and things like that. And then you have, like a hippie character who's all about her psychedelics and nature and Mother Earth and all that kind of stuff. And then, you've got the wandering warrior character who's all about like sort of the honor in his actions and keeping his soul sort of pure even when he's fighting or whatever. And there's all this sort of like touches of it. There's a farm community that is run by this, culty sort of family that has their people under control and isolated and segregated from the rest of the community to control their information. Like all the different ways that religion kind of influences our lives and positives and negatives, you know, the people who abuse it, the people who use it to lift each other up. It's all kind of woven in there. And that comes from, you know, myself and my own life and growing up in a Christian home and going to school with, you know, kids from all different kinds of religions and figuring out how we're all different, but how we're all the same. And it's all in there. And it's probably in most things that I write, whether I intend or not. I wrote I wrote a flash fiction, like 300 word thing on an episode of there's an author on AuthorTube called Kent Sean, and he has a show called Don't Drink and Live, where we do exactly what it says not to do. We get drunk and we do a live stream and we write flash fiction and read it out loud in front of everybody. And it's fun and stupid and silly. And I wrote one where like the theme was twisting a fairy tale. So I took the Pied Piper and I combined it with the story of Lucifer, the fallen angel. And I changed it all to be about a wizard and his, you know, chosen son. And boom, I had a whole new story. It wasn't a religious story, but the story of Lucifer is in there if you know what you're looking for. So it's interesting how it's all kind of interwoven, you know?
Yeah, it definitely is. Now, I kind of like the whole thing that your background and is what drives a lot of your writing. Now, can you elaborate on that? But now, because it is kind of like an obvious thing, you know, your experiences are what you write about, but how do you translate that into your writing?
I mean, I don't want to write autobiographies, so I don't, you know, I'm not just trying to sit there and be like, when I was a kid, this and this and this happened, but instead, I just sort of let that stuff flavor what I'm writing. So, you know, I'll have characters with, you know, relationships to religion similar to my own, similar to my parents, similar to my friends, people that I know, people that I grew up with, people that I've witnessed, who, you know, like I said earlier, religion influences them in different ways. And I just try to like have that as part of my character designs, you know, like talking about crafting a character. What are they like? What makes them who they are? Part of that is ultimately going to be whatever their religious views are, even if they don't have any. That in itself is a religious view. I choose not to have religious views. It's like, okay, that's your religious stance, is that you don't have one, but that's still one. So no matter what, like I try to have that be a part of my characters and try to have it be a part of my world. And especially that, you know, I'm a big fan of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire, and he has many different religions in that world. And I want the same. I want my world to feel real. And if we have a bunch of different kinds of people and we have a bunch of different regions in the world, and we should have a bunch of different religions. And, you know, some may be complete fabricated hogwash within the world, and others might have a little more reality to it than you know, and that's part of, as a reader, kind of all the, you know, the discovery of the world. When you see somebody who has a particular belief in the book and then they do something that nobody else can do, and you're like, wait, so is theirs real? Like, is that the one that's, and you're like looking for like what's real and what's not, and where is real power and what is real spirituality, and it's all just part of the discovery of the story, man. Like, I just try to let it flavor my worlds and my stories.
Hell yeah, man. I mean, I love that. Now, without getting too spoiler heavy, and again, if you could drop the release date for Shadow of the Spark, you know, you got to amp people up.
Unofficial release date is I'll say it's December, early December. I want to make it in time for the holiday season. I do have a date in mind, but I don't want to announce it just yet because it's not official. I'm working on it. As soon as I know for a fact I can pull it off, I will announce it. But right now, I'm like I said, I'm still behind on my deadline for this month, so I don't want to put my foot in my mouth. But the goal is early December. That's the goal. Ultimately, though, regardless of whether or not this book comes out in early December, I will have a book out this year, because once I'm done with this draft that I'm currently working on of the novel. I'm going to step back from it for a couple of weeks and work on some short stories and publish them in a little anthology before the main novel comes out. So I'll hopefully draw in some readers that way.
Very dope. And the only reason I mentioned that is because people need to go ahead and pre-order the book, get everything ready, buy merch, do what they got to do.
When that's ready, I'll definitely announce it. Now, along those same lines, if you go to my website, booksbyadrian.com, there's a link for the store. And in the store, I'm actually right now, as we're speaking, designing like new merch and stuff. I have a few new items that I just put up this week and some more coming up. I am completely like revamping the store and doing all kinds of new stuff with it. So I mean, there's phone cases in there, mugs, there's shirts, and it's all based on stuff from the book. So you're going to see characters from the book in there. You're going to see like, images from my Instagram that are meant to be images, from the book or from the world. And you can kind of start seeing what it is that I'm going to be doing with this book, what you can expect from it just by looking at these sort of, images on shirts and masks. Like I have masks now. Everybody has masks.
Yeah,
it's the weirdest year.
Too. I saw that too on your store earlier.
I do have leggings. Those leggings are dope, man. Like somebody needs to pick those up. I want to see somebody wearing those leggings.
Get a pair for your wife,
I'm waiting for it in the mail. Actually, those are coming. Those are coming.
Now, without getting too spoiler heavy,
yeah,
go give us a little, a little taste of what's to come.
Okay. So, all right. So, all right. Let's see. So the novel takes place on this place called the Spark. And the Spark is this giant, like moon-sized space station that is revolving around a planet called Gaia. And the last Gaia, just like we consider Earth to be named Gaia. The last of humanity lives on the Spark, and they named Gaia after their old home, ancient Earth. It's an homage of sorts, but it's this ringed planet that doesn't have a moon, and so they created one for it, and they live on that moon. The plot of the story follows, as I said earlier, this detective who's trying to solve a murder. She's newly promoted. It's her first case. And they kind of tossed her what they thought was going to be this throwaway nothing case. It was a murder-suicide. It's wrapped up already. Like the dude killed the girl and then killed himself. Case closed. Easy one, wrap it up. And it turns out to be way more complicated than that. And the further she goes, the more complex it gets, with the culty farm coming into play, with politicians coming into play, with organized crime coming into play. And at the core of all of it, surrounded by all that stuff, is this mysterious serial killer that leaves no trace except for this one murder. And when they find I'll call it, for lack of a better description, a list of his victims, it's prolific and it goes back a long time, and they had no idea this dude was doing what he was doing. So it's now a race to catch him before he can kill his next victim, who may be his biggest challenge yet. By the end of the book, we're going to have to see what happens with Migdalia, that's our detective, and her new sort of cohorts. She's pairing up with a bounty hunter and a psychedelic witch, and it's gonna be gnarly and bananas, man.
Man, it sounds gnarly and bananas. My God.
And that's just the first book. There's gonna be sequels.
Now, again, without getting too much into spoilers, what do you have planned up for the series? Kind of like, what is your overarching goal for the saga?
So there's several things that I'm trying to do with this particular trilogy, and I have the whole thing outlined anyway. I have it plotted. Obviously, I haven't started writing the actual second or third books yet. I'll get into that once I'm done editing book one. But my plan is to have one out per year for the next 3 years, and to have them be around the same time, to have them sort of be like this event that happens over the course of the next 3 years. And I want to take these 3 characters and some of the supporting characters in the first book that get elevated into main character status in the sequels, through this kind of crazy epic journey that starts on the Spark goes to Gaia, and then ends on the spark. That's kind of the big tease that I can give everybody, is that book 1 is going to be on the spark. Book 2 is mostly going to be on Gaia, and book 3 will be back. And there may or may not be a third world that sort of comes into play somewhere, but I don't want to talk too much about that. If you look through the story, you might get a hint though, as to who the third civilization is, so to speak.
Man, that is dope. Now, what elements of thriller and mystery, like where do you get your inspiration from? Like what TV shows, what movies, like what it drives you? I mean, you already sang the song of my heart with Neil Gaiman. You really did. And the 3 comic books that you specifically quoted, what were Watchmen, Sandman, and The Dark Knight Returns. I mean, you got me.
Yeah.
Phenomenal choice.
Now, those 3 were related to the graphic novel I was talking about earlier, Dusk. But as far as this novel, I'm a huge fan of David Fincher movies.
Oh my God, yes. Gone
Seven,
Girl, what the fuck?
Gone Girl, yes. Zodiac is one of my favorites. And I feel maybe his most underrated movie. I consider it this incredible masterpiece. I watch it regularly. And so it's this...
Jake Gyllenhaal, no? Lead?
Yep, Jake Gyllenhaal.
With Robert Downey Jr. Oh, phenomenal movie. I watched it like 3-4 times at least.
I love it. And so that's a big one as far as the sort of serial killer murder mystery part of it goes. Zodiac and Seven are both very good, sources to kind of point to.
What's in the box?
Yeah. I'm not doing that. And then there's no box. And then Neil Gaiman was a good example for like what you can expect fantasy wise. He tends to do very, very epic fantasy in a very subtle way. I feel is like his sort of niche. In American Gods, you're following Shadow, and he's noticing like how strange his world is, and it gets more and more strange as he goes. But at the end of the day, it's always this sort of heightened reality. It's still very grounded, and that's sort of where I come from with my fantasy elements, with the magic elements. I try to keep them very grounded. Same can be said for Game of Thrones. Like it has very subtle magic, at least at first, and it grows as you go through the series. So I can point to those. And then as far as the sci-fi stuff is concerned, I mean, stuff like Looper is a good example where like it's very action heavy. It's very, thriller, where it just gets more and more exciting as it goes. And the sci-fi stuff, the tech is there, but the tech isn't really the point. The tech is dressing, it's window dressing. It's, the characters drive the story in a movie like Looper. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from with my sci-fi, where like you'll see, sci-fi tech and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. It's not something that you need to like really suspend your disbelief for or whatever. Like when I tell you that the hover cars are hover cars because they have magnet systems and the streets are made of steel, then you get it. Like you don't need me to explain how they hover over the ground. It's magnets. Like, okay, like I don't have to go into the nitty gritty. You know what I mean? So it's like that. So I guess subtle is the key word. Is like, like subtlety is the sweet spot.
Well, if I can be honest, what it sounds like is it has a little bit of a genre that I really did not know anything about until a couple months ago. Speculative fiction. I had no idea what that even was. And speculative basically is just kind of like fiction that is just like you literally just don't know what happens. So like Looper is like I never knew, but that's a great example of speculative fiction because you never understand what happens with Rain Man. And you said it perfectly that the technology is there, but it's not like in your face. Same thing with the whole like telekinesis system that they have. Like you don't even pay attention to it. It's not even a thing. Like your mind is 100% in the whole like past versus future, Bruce Willis versus plastic surgery man.
and even that they kind of are very dismissive with the tech too, like all the time travel stuff. When Bruce Willis shows up and his younger self has all these questions, he's like, I'm not gonna sit here and talk time travel with you, man. It's not gonna make sense anyway. Just fuck it, let's keep going. And like it's like, that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love that. There's something to be said, especially I would say in contrast to the George R. Martin type of thing, where it's like there's no Well, he does have a really great way of leaving like a lot of mysteries. Like reading forum post of like a Song of Ice and Fire is one of my favorite things. Just like people
Oh,
like,
dude,
oh, Littlefinger's
rabbit
actually a
holes for
Targaryen.
days.
It's just like, oh, you gotta love it because people are quoting. You know, they're doing data. It's to the
I
point that
have
you,
I'm guilty of it. I have so many like fan theories about that world. Like even having seen the show and having it ended or whatever, like I still have so many like ideas. I think Varys is a Blackfire. I think that fake Aegon might be a Blackfire, and I think his whole scheme is to get a Blackfire on the Iron Throne. And Littlefinger is, oh my god, dude! Like I could go on for days, just rabbit hole after rabbit hole of this like dense world that you can peel apart so many different parts to, man. And my book is not quite that, but ultimately that's the kind of like layers that I'm going for. I want people to be able to be like peeling stuff back and really like dive into the histories of my characters and have theories and stuff. Like I'm all about that, man. That sounds awesome.
well, yeah, because that to me, I think that type of feedback can be gotten from both, that high level of prose where like, George R. Martin is talking, 3 pages on the colors of a leaf and like the shades of sun hitting a girl's titty.
He gets a lot of shit for
You
that,
know
but
what
I
I
don't
mean?
think that he's that bad. I think that Tolkien is a lot worse. Tolkien was a
Oh,
lot worse than,
I would no, and I would agree, But the point
yeah,
I was making was more kind of like you can get that same level of like world building from brevity too.
feast. George R. R. Martin's biggest like problem in his books is feast. That dude loves food. It's apparent. I do too, but that dude loves food. And he goes on for pages about the feast and all the food. And there's a blood orange
And
mentioned in every
genitalias.
fucking, oh dude, yes, that's the other one. But
I'm
you
telling
can't
you.
really blame him for that one. But he goes on and on about food sometimes. And I'm like, all right, dude, like let's get back to like somebody getting killed here. What's going on? Like, wait, like why are we talking about food so much?
I'm telling you, it is the best thing because
Excuse me.
why you gotta love that is that it almost leaves no balls like rolling off. You're
Mm.
there. Whatever it was in your head is in his head, and you just go with it. But there's
That's the
something
beauty of an author like that, who can create a world so full and alive that even when you're reading about this ridiculous feast and all the different foods in it, you're still imagining all the foods, and you're smelling all the smells, and you're hearing the music and hearing the people, and he sets that scene so beautifully so that when somebody does get their head chopped off, you go, whoa, because you were just thinking about blood oranges, man. Like you weren't ready for this. Like that's how he's so good at that stuff,
my
man. He's
God,
so good at it.
and just his like his eye for like literature. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
if you had like your high school art teacher like review one of his books, oh my god, the thing that she could say. Do you remember like
Oh,
those art classes that you're like looking at? It's like, oh, you see the blue represents the innocence of like the woman's fertility, and just looking at this like, all right, but what if the guy just liked blue that day though?
yeah.
What if he ran out of purple? You know what I mean? But George R.
Yeah.
R. Martin is like the exact opposite. It's like, no, he blood orange right before the
Yeah.
red wedding, put the things
Mm.
together. It's just like
Mm.
it's perfect, and it goes back to what we're talking about in the beginning, because there's certain people that can read that and just go like, oh yeah, blood orange, who gives a fuck, it's food. And other people that goes
Dude,
like, oh shit, what's about to happen.
dude, let me tell you what. All right. On that same topic of the people who can read the same thing you're reading and they get this incredible amount of depth out of it, there's a podcast called The Astrology of Ice and Fire. Okay. And the host of that podcast basically has chronicled all of the all of the astrology in these novels and related it to the storytelling. So for example, there's the story in the first book, A Game of Thrones, where one of the handmaidens is tending to Daenerys, and they're talking about the moon and how the moon is an egg or whatever. And the other one is like, no, moon is the moon is a goddess, blah blah blah. And then the other one's like, well, there used to be two moons, and one got too close to the sun and cracked open, and a thousand dragons poured out. And like that story is like actual astrology that happened in the world, but it's metaphorical in that story. So he like dissects all that stuff. So this world used to have two moons. One of them got destroyed. The debris from that caused the original long night. That's what the long night was the world covered in darkness because one of the moons was literally destroyed by a comet or whatever, right? And so the whole rest of the series, George Martin is retelling that event over and over and over again. When Bran falls from the tower, when Cersei lights the Tower of the Hand on fire, anytime any high up place is destroyed or somebody falls from it, or there's a blonde male character like Jaime, who's like a sun god kind of figure, like all of these things are just the same story being retold to you over and over and over again in different ways. And this dude has an entire podcast with like 100 episodes talking about this all over and over. It's so interesting. It's crazy the amount of depth in those books. It's insane. Everybody gives him shit about how long he's been working on the Winds of Winter, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna wait because nobody else is doing this shit. Nobody else is doing what he's doing.
Dude, you know what's my favorite part of his mythos, right? Is that you zoom out a little bit further and you realize that everything that he's ever written in his life is one continuity. So he wrote a book back in this day because he was started off as a sci-fi writer.
Right.
And he started off, I think it was called like a series called the Thousand Year War or some bullshit like that. And it was basically like almost like a Star Wars, that type of thing. That's like a universe that goes through like constant rises of like, you know, high levels of technology, then falling, then back and forth. And basically what Games of Thrones are, so what people are theorizing based on like context clues of his other series and like other writings.
It's like one planet in that universe.
That Game of Thrones is actually one of these planets after a huge like a huge like uprising of one of those things, like a huge like global reset basically of like technology.
He has a short story called The Ice Dragon.
Nightwalkers. Oh.
And oh no, is it Nightwalker? What's the vampire one he did? He did a vampire. Was that Nightwalkers?
Yeah.
That's another one.
And
all of them, and you're right, that all of them have this sort of like, they at least are possible in the same universe and have Easter eggs connecting them if you look for them.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting, man. Because I know that when his short story, the Ice Dragon, came out, I was like, there's lots of talk about ice dragons in A Song of Ice and Fire, but we've never seen one. Is this what you're telling us? That's the rumor, right? That there's one under Winterfell, but we haven't seen it. There's a lot of talk about ice dragons, but we haven't seen it. So in the books, this is leaving the TV show aside. So it's very interesting how he does stuff like that. And he wrote a graphic novel series for a while, comic book series, for a long time for, I think, Dark Horse Comics. And that's another one that I think people are talking about, how it just fits as another planet in this universe of his. He's Tarantinoing his books, you know, with his movies.
I love it.
Because all Tarantino movies take place in the same universe.
Oh man, and Tarantino's on another level because Tarantino breaks it up in two. He makes it like there's the real world, which is like Inglourious Bastards, and
that's right. And then there's
Reservoir
like
Dogs,
and the film world inside of it. Yeah,
and then there's like what the movies that the characters of those movies would watch in that universe. So there's Kill Bill.
Kill Bill is a movie. Yes, I've heard this. Yes.
Which other ones? I can't remember.
I think isn't
the one that he made
Death Proof one of them?
Death Proof is 100% of them, and oh my god, not enough people have watched that movie. I used to have that poster. Like I don't know why, but that poster's sick. Well, like
it's so different from anything else he's done. It's so straightforward. It's basically one long stunt
man
like
Mike.
Movie.
Who thought of a killer like that?
Yo, man.
Who's
Stuntman Mike is legit.
He's just going around picking up bitches at a bar. Hey, come on, I got something over here. He just goes.
Yeah, man, dude, that movie's crazy. That was, and then the stunt woman, I forget her name, but the stunt woman who's like on the hood of the car doing the thing all by herself. Like, that stuff is nuts, man. God. That stuff is nuts.
I think I watched that movie when I was like 14, 15. Those one of those movies that like
it's been a while,
and like you don't like, you're not 100% there with like you like girls and whatnot, but you're over there just looking at it's like, oh, you know what, I don't know why, but I want to watch this movie 3-4 times more. What, just like rewatch it again? Actually, can we rewind the scene over here with this girl? No reason. I just like the cinematography.
Yeah. It's just shot really well.
No, it's just a car. Another one like that was Tokyo Drift.
See, I never got into Tokyo Drift. I remember liking the first Fast and Furious movie when it came out, and then I remember just not liking Tokyo Drift at all. And it took me right out. It took me right out of that series. I didn't get back into them until way, way later when they started getting good again, in my opinion. But I know a lot of people really love Tokyo Drift. I don't understand why, but I know that it's a beloved one.
No, I'll easily admit, especially that like I would consider myself a movie buff. I would That's definitely my I would never admit that in like a if we were in a group of people that also like movies, I would never say that. Oh, what's
Yeah.
your favorite movie? Oh,
No, it's not your
Stanley
yeah.
Kubrick, shit like that. That last movie that came out that was like 5 hours long about the French Revolution and they spoke in French only? That was the one.
Yeah.
That was the one. That's my favorite.
Actually, my favorite movie, you probably never heard of it because it's a foreign movie. It came from Korea. Like, I don't think you've heard of it. It's fine.
Although I will say, have you ever seen the movie Parasite?
I have not, but I hear great things about it. I do want to watch it. It's on my list on Netflix, but I haven't seen it yet.
I will say it is it's truly the like after watching that movie is when I realized
won best picture at the Oscars, I think.
Yeah. After watching that movie is when I realized that I really need to like not be so American with like my movie choices.
Dude, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I need to expand my branches, watch foreign movies, watch it in their language, not with the English dub, but just like watch it with subtitles.
I learned that
really
much younger when I first saw this movie by Cameron Crowe called Vanilla Sky.
Oh,
it's with Tom Cruise and Penelope Cruz. It's amazing. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. Another like very underrated thing, Vanilla Sky. But the crazy thing is that it's a remake of a Spanish movie, like from Spain, like a Spanish movie starring Penelope Cruz. He recast her in the same role and remade it with Tom Cruise, and it's almost exactly the same movie. He makes his changes and he actually improves on a lot of stuff. But I went back when I found out that it was a remake. The original is called Abre los ojos, open your eyes. So I went back and I watched that, and the fact that they were pulling off what a huge Hollywood director did in his remake, they were pulling it off in Spain years before him. I was like, yo, I need to expand my horizons, man. I had no idea that they were doing this kind of stuff over there. And that movie's intense, man. It has to do with the dream world and the real world, and physical appearances and mistaken identities. And it's a very, very complex film and dark, very dark at times. And it's just chef's kiss,
Oh my God.
Vanilla Sky, highly recommended, but check out.
I just saw it. I was flipping through it. I have it. I'm gonna watch it tonight without a single doubt.
Nice.
Man, with a name like Vanilla Sky, you would almost think
you'd never guess. Yeah. I don't know why. I mean, I know what the reference is to in the movie. There's a scene where you're like, oh, that's what the title means, but I don't know why he changed it. The original title was cool, but like Vanilla Sky, there's something about it that you have no idea what the movie's about by that title. And I think that's what did it the most disservice. Like people are not going to know like, oh, that's a movie about dreams and reality. Whereas Open Your Eyes, that makes more sense. Okay, dreams, waking up, like I get
Maybe they didn't want it to be confused with Eyes Wide Shut, which is also a Tom Cruise movie. So like I think
that's a very good point. I didn't even think of that. That's a very good point.
I actually think that they came out within that came out within the same time frame too. So like especially with how marketing is in Hollywood, they hate that type of shit.
Well, because Eyes Wide Shut was his last movie with Nicole Kidman, and then they got divorced shortly after that. And one of the first people who started dating was Penelope Cruz after that. So that, they're probably back-to-back films almost, probably.
Tom Cruise got with Penelope Cruz too? Some people.
He did it. They dated for a little while, yeah.
That is...
Before the whole Katie Holmes jumping on a couch fiasco. That was a thing.
Maybe she had, maybe we're not judging it. Maybe she has some crazy good pussy that we just don't know about. You know what I mean? Maybe she has some crazy shit.
He looked really excited. Know what I mean? But he looked really excited.
Some crazy shit. She got like
and I got nothing against Katie Holmes, but I'm like, yo, you were with Penelope Cruz and you're jumping on a couch for Katie Holmes. I get nothing against her. I'm just saying, Penelope Cruz. Come on, bro.
I mean,
there's several actresses that like when I'm watching a movie and they come on, even if I'm with my wife, I'll lean over to her and I'll be like, "That's my girlfriend," and she's like, it's like okay.
The thing is that you can't even like the same way that when Chris Hemsworth comes on the screen, it's like, all right, I get it. You know what I mean? I get it.
It's obvious.
But the same way, it's like, come on, look at that, look at her face.
Come on,
look at that. Come on, that's a work of art. Like,
look at those cheekbones. It's amazing.
I'm telling you, just like the way the body. And obviously, I'm a little. Then again, I've always said to my friends that, like, especially when anytime my friends start arguing, it's like, nah, girls from XYZ are fine. Nah, girls from here. My answer is
Dude,
always, listen,
everybody,
girls from everywhere are fine,
exactly,
son. It doesn't
exactly.
matter. You put me in bumfuck Alaska, I guarantee you I'll find some girl be like, hey,
Yeah,
guaranteed, almost guaranteed.
there are tens everywhere. You just gotta look. There are tens everywhere.
Exactly. 100%. But the only thing that I guess I'm a little biased to is, Spanish girls. You know what I mean?
Of course,
It's
I
just,
married a Cuban.
there's
I
something,
always said
there's
I wasn't
something
gonna.
there.
Yeah, I always said I wasn't gonna marry a Latina because let's be honest, us Latinos, we can be very kind of intense, and that was one of the things when I was young and stupid. That was like, oh man, Latinos are cool, but I'm not gonna marry one. Yo, I married a Cuban, like, like for real, for real. That's that good.
I'm telling you, there's something there. I mean, like, I guess I'm still in that young age. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, it's demasiado. You know what I mean? But it's definitely on the way.
It's a trap, bro, but it's a good trap. Fall into it. Give in.
Now, you got me on something when you were talking about like Tarantino and like all these things, specifically with like with what that director was able to do with, I'm assuming, a smaller budget, right?
Mm.
That right there is kind of like what I draw so much of my inspiration from. Is like watching my favorite movie, like favorite director's debut stuff, like Jon Favreau's Swingers. You know what I mean? Reservoir
Yeah.
Dogs by Tarantino. It's like they've
Memento by
really.
Chris Nolan.
Oh,
Like
of course.
before they had millions and millions of dollars, when they had to like make do with just the bare minimum, that's when they really made like just these,
Somebody gave them a pitch and they literally broke the bat into splinters with that shit.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like my favorite part in Swingers is something I think I joke about, like well, I can't really say I joke about it. I think about it often though. It's like when they're sitting down and they're talking about their movies, and Jon Favreau goes like, oh, what about that scene in Reservoir Dogs when they're like walking slow motion, smoking a cigarette, and they all start joking about how stupid that scene is, and then literally the next scene is them going to the club and they're doing the exact same shit. It's like, yo,
Yeah.
oh my god, this guy is on another fucking level, man.
And on that same subject of like directors making works of art with very, very little to work with, one of my favorite movies is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Oh my god.
And it's this incredible little piece where like, I don't know how many folks are familiar, but Michel Gondry, who directed that movie, he has a history before directing as a magician. And so like a lot of the stuff in the movie is practical stuff done on camera. There's a sequence where, it's the parts of the dreams that are getting erased where Jim Carrey's character Joel and Clementine, they're having fights all the time. They're fighting all the time. They're on the verge of breaking up, and these particular memories are being deleted as he's reliving them. And so he's sitting on the couch and she's there standing in front of him screaming at him, and then she walks away to the kitchen and he goes to follow her, and then he hears her voice behind him and he turns around and she's coming out of the bedroom, and so he starts following her that way, and she goes into a closet, and he goes into the closet and she's gone, and he looks and she's going out the front door. And all of that was practical on set with like sliding doors and secret doors and stuff. Like they did that practically. She would just like run and change her costume real quick and suddenly be on the other side of the apartment. And the camera never cuts. It's just moving and you see them doing all this stuff. And I'm like, yo, like that's movie making right there, man. That's how you tell a story with like $5. It's like, okay, let's just cut a hole in this wall where they're not going to see, and then just open it. And then she can sneak out and go that way. And it's all just magician tricks and sleight of hand and mirrors. And, dude, that's beautiful stuff, bro.
That's what I'm telling you. I'm glad that you're akin with the love of cinematography and film and everything, because I'm telling you,
love movies.
When I notice those type of things and the type of shit that makes me geek, and I guess it goes back to again what we were talking about before, because you could be sitting down with your friend, and the friend's not even that dumb. He likes art. He's just like like studying the plot of it. But you're over here, and it's just like, oh no, but look at the camera angle, like the way that like the characters juxtaposition of the previous scene, and how it's like showing the characters, blah blah blah.
What's really beautiful to me is when my love of that stuff rubs off on other people. I've been watching stuff with my wife for a very long time, and before I came into her life, she wasn't big into movies. She didn't watch a lot of movies. It's not something that she cared about. And now we make time to sit down and watch something together almost every night after the kids go to bed. And so we were watching the first episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And we're watching it, and there's this moment where Bucky, the Winter Soldier, is at his therapist's office, and they're having a therapy session. And when it cuts to him speaking, the camera is like here, you know, like his eye is in focus, and the rest of him is all blurry. And that's something that normally I would be like, oh man, look at that shot. And my wife was like, "Oh, I like how close it is to him because he looks claustrophobic, like he's feeling small and like crowded." And I'm like, "Yes, that's exactly right. What a bravo!" Like I was so excited for her to have picked up on something like that. I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's visual storytelling. You know, that the director wants you to feel claustrophobic, so he just sucks you right into like get right up in your face. Like that's movie making, man. Breaking Bad is a masterclass in that stuff. My favorite show of all time.
Vince Gilligan is a god.
Dude,
a god
I
among
model
men.
all my writing on his writing techniques.
Me too.
The index card thing that he does, genius. That I do that with everything. And everything I know about storytelling, I learned from Breaking Bad. It's a masterclass.
Me too.
And to the same extent, Better Call Saul. If you guys are not watching it,
I haven't.
jump in.
For whatever reason, I can't. I've watched the first 3 episodes. I'm not kidding. At least 4 times.
You can't judge it. I don't know what it is because
I'm not trying to judge it. It's just
no. I get it, but
I really try. Believe me, I really try because Breaking Bad.
Here's
is
what
my
I'll tell you.
God.
Here's what I'll tell you to entice you a little bit into giving it one last shot. Yes, those first 3 episodes are very different from Breaking Bad. They are night and day because we're following a whole different character in a whole different era. Fine, but Mike is also on that show, as you know. And the more you delve into Mike, the more Breaking Bad starts to come into it. And so by episode 5, I think, of that first season, Mike gets his first episode where it's him and his backstory. And you get into what he's doing in Albuquerque, why he's there, what his relationship is to his daughter-in-law and her daughter, his granddaughter. And once you get into all that stuff, and why his career as a cop ended and all, dude, it gets so intense, and it only builds every season from there. The last season 5, is basically Breaking Bad Part 2. It's just balls to the twins, the Tuco's cousins. Yeah. They're back.
The Reapers.
There's a whole other Salamanca there, dude. It's insane. It gets so incredibly good. And the closer that Bob Odenkirk brings Jimmy McGill to Saul Goodman, the more you're like, oh, like it's a tragedy because you know how he ends up, and you're just seeing this dude who just wants to do right, and you're like, you're gonna end up so corrupt and greedy and slimy, and it's heartbreaking to watch this dude with a heart of gold, you know, just falling. It's just it's beautiful. It's beautiful. But anyway, Breaking Bad, dude, masterclass in storytelling. And they do that. They do that where they put the camera in certain spots to make you feel like you're peeping in on something you're not supposed to see, you know?
A fly episode.
Oh my God.
An entire episode.
Exactly.
From a fly's point of view. I mean, who made this man? Where did he come from? What spaceship?
It's brilliant stuff, man. It's brilliant stuff.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's my favorite stuff.
And you know what's I feel is another really underrated one, and if you haven't watched it, I have it. It's one of my most underrated recommendations.
Okay.
Birdman. That entire movie is a one shot. The entire movie is a one shot. I've never seen anything compared to that. Longest sequence I ever seen previous to that was 15 minutes in Daredevil. Phenomenal, by the way.
Yeah. Big fan of that as well. Another good one is Children of Men. Children of Men has 4 or 5 one-shot sequences that are really, really great. There's one in particular where what's his name? Shit.
We have the power of the internet.
Yeah, why am I trying to think of it myself? Anyway, so he's the characters are in a car, and you know they're trudging along, and everything is cool, and they're having a great time, and then all of a sudden like all hell breaks loose and there's all these people around them trying to get into the car and smashing windows and firing guns. And it's this insane sequence that never cuts. And the camera actually leaves the inside of the car and like goes around it and goes back in through a different window and goes through the car and sees everything, comes back out and never cuts. And you're like, how in the blue blazes did they fucking do this? And when you see the making of, where like the car actually comes apart to let the camera come in and then puts it back together when it turns back around, and you're just like, freaking what? Like, dude, those one-shot sequences are insane.
I'm telling you, I guess it's just one of those things that you can't like have a true appreciation for until you try to mimic it your own.
Yeah.
But especially when you get into writing.
Clive Owen.
Clive Owen. Actually, I thought it was Alfonso Cuarón.
Oh, I'm sorry. The director. Yes, the director. I was talking about the
actor, the lead. Yeah.
Yes. Because you said Colin, and I was thinking Colin Farrell, but I'm like, no, that's not right. It's Clive Owen. Oh, but yes, Alfonso Cuarón.
Man, it is. There is just like people always kind of like especially friends that don't write, they always like oh, why do you like focus so much on like movies and TV shows if your thing is about writing? Shouldn't it just be spending like all day like reading books? And it's like, listen, writing isn't everything if you pay attention to it, specifically books and movies.
Somebody wrote that script. Somebody had to write it.
And not only that, a writer. Like a book was written by maybe 1 or 2 people. A TV show has like 15 writers on it. If you pay attention to that shit, the amount of things that you can pick up from it are unreal. And they have
the styles that are woven in and out, the voices. Dude, excuse me. Movies are very much a director's show, right? Like a movie production lives and breathes by the director. Obviously, they need a good script to make a good movie from it, but any good director can elevate whatever they're making to make it better. But TV is a writer's game. TV shows, it all comes out. The writer is the king on TV shows. Every episode has a different director. Those guys come and go like nothing. They just get hired, they come in, they shoot the stuff. The whole crew already knows how to shoot it anyway. They don't even need the director there. That's it, whatever. But the writer, he's on set with the script, talking to people about like, no, it should be like this, it should be like that. The writer rules the show on TV shows. And so stuff like Breaking Bad, yes, there are a lot of writers in the writer's room, but you also have the showrunner with his fingers and everything, making sure that everything is just so. And the way in particular that Breaking Bad writes their scripts is, I think, very, very important for people to look into and to learn from, because it comes down to this room of like 7 writers total, if we include Vince Gilligan, and they all break the story together. They're like, okay, what if this happens next? And what if this happens next? And why can't we think of where to go here? Well, where are the character's minds at? What has he just been through? What's he dealing with right now? Oh, he's been dealing with this. Okay, so maybe we should go this way. And they plot it together, and they put up those index cards of these big moments that matter, that are impactful and visually stunning and all this stuff. And they plot it that way, and then they take that stuff down and they give it to a writer and go write the script. And that writer writes that script. And then Vince Gilligan comes and like touches it up and makes it, perfect. But dude, the fact that all these different voices are in that room, and then each of those voices writes each episode, like when you watch Breaking Bad, that it looks like a singular vision. And in a lot of ways it is. It's Vince Gilligan, but in a lot of ways it's not. So many people are involved in making that. The cinematographer, the actors, the sound, engineers, the editors. They have a great podcast, an official podcast that AMC created following the entire series of Breaking Bad. And the host of that podcast is their editor. And so she like talks about how she edits all these things together. There's a wonderful moment where in the 5th season, Jesse gives Walter a watch for his birthday. And Walter kind of uses it to brag to his wife, Skylar, who fucking hates him at this point and wants nothing to do with him. And he's like, look, the dude that gave me this watch, he hated me too. And he wanted to kill me. He put a gun to my head. He was going to kill me. And now he bought me a watch for my birthday. He forgave me, and so will you. And the arrogance of that, right? And then he goes to his room and he goes to bed. He puts his watch on the bedside table and he goes to sleep. And as the episode is ending, the camera is zeroing in on this watch, and the watch is ticking, and it's ticking and it's ticking and it's coming closer. And the editor, without anybody telling her to, decided, I'm going to put the sound of a gun cocking at the very end of this sequence. So as you're watching, it's tick, 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 and it cuts out. And you're just like, was that a gun cocking back? What do they say? Like, is Jesse going to kill Walt? Like, just that one little moment foreshadowing like this tension between those two characters coming in the future. You're just like, yo, that's storytelling too, man. That's storytelling.
What about
that
the fucking
editor
pizza?
told the story. The pizza, dude.
My God,
Bryan Cranston is he's a superhuman.
Fair. Like,
you know what's funny about Bryan Cranston? Everybody knows that he used to be on Malcolm in the Middle before he was on Breaking Bad, and very comedic performance on that show. Very comedic actor. That show, the writers on that show talk about it all the time. How it basically became, let's see if we can find something that Bryan won't do. And they just pitch him crazy stuff like, hey, this week you're going to be covered in bees. And he's like, cool. It's like, hey, next week you got to, be a world-class roller skater. And he's like, cool, I'll go learn how to roller skate right now. And like 2 weeks later, he shows up on set and he's doing circles around everybody. And they're like, dude, what can't you do? He's superhuman. He threw that pizza and it landed on the roof perfectly. One take, done. Everybody go home.
like, I didn't even know that. I was just referencing how awesome like the cinematography of that scene was. That it was like a comical thing. But then as the thing progressed and like it showed the pizza like staying there and being like all ugly, it showed
the
like
cheese coming up.
It showed basically it basically became a representation of his marriage and how that's like a done deal. There's no going back now. It's like that marriage, it's like mess. That cheese is coming off. There's nothing you can do with it anymore. You're done. Oh my God. And it came to add to the mythos of Bryan Cranston, because he definitely deserves it. There's one time that so I guess like when people are like singing to themselves or whistling in a TV show, the people that run the show eventually have to like figure out, there's people that get paid to figure out, like listen to that tune and figure out like what song you were like,
and if it's free use or whatever,
and if it's for use, and if whoever they got to pay to not get sued and XYZ. And one time they did it for Bryan Cranston, and they found out that the thing that he was humming was a completely original tune, and they had to start giving him money for royalty for a tune that he hummed randomly.
Dude, I believe that.
Could he get more godly? Could he? Like, there's no way.
I have two more Bryan Cranston stories to wrap up our little thing here. Number one is he played a character on Saving Private Ryan. He is the I think he's like a lieutenant or something, very high up, and he is the guy who gives the order for the troop to go and save Private Ryan, right? And his character, the thing about his character in the script was that he was missing an arm. He had lost it in the war, so he only had one arm. And Bryan Cranston is like, oh man, Steven Spielberg movie, I get to play a character with no arm. I'm gonna nail this thing. So he practices this move, right, where he has a teacup and a saucer, and he's holding it with one hand, and he's got a little spoon, and with one hand, he's holding it with one hand, he picks up the spoon, and he gets sugar, and he dumps it in, and he stirs it while holding all of it with one hand. And he shows up on set, and he's like, hey, Steven, check this out. And he shows it to him. And Steven Spielberg is like, dude, that's amazing. We can't use that. Like, that, where are you gonna, that has nothing to do with the scene. Like, what are you doing? And then he's like, but I'm doing it with one hand. Like, just this, he went through all that trouble and it never ended up showing up in the movie, but he freaking did it. You know what I mean? Like, that's my first story about Bryan Cranston. And the second one is this, and this is more in line with being an author and storytelling and writing and stuff. He wrote a book called A Life in Parts. It's an autobiography. And every chapter in it explores a different part of his life where he plays a different part. It's the part of a son, the part of a father, the part of a husband, the part of a this, the part of a that. But chapter one is the part of Walter White. And so he begins the whole book in the first chapter inside the head of Walter White when Jane is dying. She's choking to death in front of him. And he tells you what Walter White was thinking throughout that entire moment, what he was going through. And he comes out of that, finishing the chapter as Bryan Cranston, explaining to you his process of getting out of character after he's done shooting, and his story of how that shooting that scene brought him to tears because Kristen Ritter in front of him playing Jane transformed in his eyes to his daughter, who was about the same age at the time. And he was essentially watching his daughter choke to death and not stopping it because that's the scene. And dude, the emotional turmoil in that chapter will freaking wreck you. Like, if nothing else, like read that one chapter. But it's a great book nonetheless. It's an incredible look into the process of a really prolific actor like that and how a character is actually brought to life. Like, literally brings a character to life. Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. A Life in Parts by Bryan Cranston.
Oh my god.
Good shit.
Man, I'm getting that book. Stop
It's
playing
good.
with me. Are you kidding me?
Freaking good. He's got another
Jesus.
story in there about how he ran into Charles Manson once. He's got a lot of great stories. He was also traveling the country at one point, and he was the main suspect in a murder case. But he wasn't even there. Like, he was traveling the country. Like, his alibi was solid. It wasn't him, but he was suspected. Like, he's got crazy stories. It's a great book. It's a great book.
Him and Jim Carrey, especially like when it first started happening, are uncancelable to me. I don't care what story comes out about him tomorrow. Oh, they like to kick little kids when on the weekend. Fuck those kids then. We're talking about Jim Carrey. What did those kids do to like God?
And Jim Carrey went full like psychedelic monk. Like, he's bananas these days, but I love him.
And his art is phenomenal too.
Oh my god, his art is incredible.
Oh my god, like he really went to the other level. I didn't even know he had that in him. He really is like on. I really think he's like our modern day Picasso. Like,
absolutely.
When he dies, his shit's gonna sell for millions. It really is.
He's
amazing.
Incredibly good at painting. He's a great singer. He's a dancer. He's a comedic actor. He's a dramatic actor, an incredibly good dramatic actor. But did you see the documentary on Netflix, Jim and Andy?
Yes, of course.
Oh my
without
god,
a single doubt.
Oh my god, yes. What he did on that set is insane. The experience that he created for those people. Like, I showed it to a friend of mine, and he's bugging out through the whole thing about like what's real and what's not. And Jim Carrey has that one moment where he's stressed out and he's like smoking outside, and he's like, I don't even smoke. Like, this is Andy stuff. Like, this isn't even me. Like, I don't even smoke. What am I doing right now? Like, he's freaking out, right? So my buddy's freaking out. And the whole time I'm going, bro, you don't even know. There's going to be a part coming up later where Andy Kaufman's estranged daughter, who he never met in real life, comes to the set so that she can meet her father for the first time and talk to him beyond the grave. Like, that stuff like happened, bro. That he created a whole reality for these people on that set. It's incredible. He's incredible.
And you know what's kind of funny? To tie that to the beginning of the podcast again, I was talking to a co-worker of mine, about that exact same sequence. Basically, I was just you saying that to a co-worker of mine, and his response was like, "Oh, that movie was just a response for Jim Carrey to act like an asshole to like the entire crew and the director." And it's like, you piece of shit. You piece of shit.
When you watch that documentary, you might think that at the beginning, but when you get to the end and everybody's crying their eyeballs out when Andy has cancer and he dies at the end of the movie, that they are filming, like when they have their rap party and the freaking, I forget his name, the character that Andy like creates, the lounge singer,
Tom Clamps. Oh, man, what is it?
Tom. I don't know if it's Tom.
I know it starts with a C. I know it's Tom something.
Here, I'm gonna look it up real quick, man, on the moon. When he shows up and starts like singing like his ode to this, dead character that died a long time ago, but the fact that it's just, oh my god, dude, it's freaking crazy. It's freaking crazy. Here, Andy Kaufman, Tony Clifton. When Tony Clifton shows up and sings and everybody's legit crying, you know that it was not him acting like an asshole. He was Andy Kaufman during that time. Andy Kaufman, had he made this movie, would have behaved exactly like that. And that's why he did it. Yeah, it was crazy and annoying and probably gave people headaches. But you know what? That's Andy Kaufman. That's what he would have freaking done. There's that great moment in it where he's telling the story of the director calling him and going, I am intimidated by Tony Clifton, and I am not intimidated by any man. And he's freaking out because he's like, I can't get Andy to do what I want him to do. And Jim Carrey says to him, excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. Jim Carrey says to him, well, if you can't bring yourself to continue working with Andy and Tony, I'll tell you what I can do. I'm a pretty good impressionist, and I can do an impression of Andy Kaufman when you say action, and I can stop that impression of Andy Kaufman when you say cut. Would you like that instead? And the director, like, there's a long, quiet pause, and the director goes, no, I don't want you to stop. I just wanted to talk to Jim. It's this incredible story where it's like, no, dude, keep going, because this stuff is real, bro.
Amazing. Dude, I moved to the Dominican Republic, to America, from the Dominican Republic, and obviously it's actually kind of we'll definitely need to talk about like our Spanish upbringing in the next podcast, or the next time I go on your live stream or anything. You know, we'll definitely have more conversation in the future.
Let's do it.
But
that's a great idea for a live stream, like Latin representation.
Yeah, that would, oh man, that would be phenomenal. I thought about the moment that we talked about it, but then we got into like, you know, love of movies and everything like that. What can you do? But like when I came in here and I'm dealing with all that like immigration stuff, Grinch, you know, his Grinch was my first. I learned English off that movie. I'm not kidding. You know, that's my Grinch. I learned English off that movie. I mean, like his mannerisms, the like, Max, fetch me my cloak. Like that is my movie. I know that movie like this. I'm telling you.
Yeah. I freaking love that movie.
Ruff, ruff. I don't know, or some type of soup. Like I'm telling you, that movie is in the back of my head. I have Grinch slippers. I mean,
he talks about how making that movie was torture, bro. Like being in the suit and the contacts and everything. Like he was like suffering. Yeah, he said that he brought in like some army guys to teach him about like how to survive like pain and torture. Like like that's intense stuff, man. That's suffering for your art.
I'm telling exactly. I'm telling you, that's why I mean that he is uncancelable to me. As like
he's on another level, man.
If he came and hit my dog, I will look around and look at my dog and be like, yeah, what are you doing messing around with Jim?
I look at him at exactly the same way as I look at Robin Williams. This unstoppable force of comedy and characters and joy and laughter and just, I mean, yeah. A treasure,
Williams is the only celebrity death that can truly like actually move me. Like I know a lot of people
that one hurt, bro.
Yeah, when people, especially in the bullshit that we live in today, that like somebody will die and everybody will go like, oh my god, what a treasure, what a thing, and they're not a fan of him at all. They're just doing
Robin Williams
else is crying.
Robin Williams was real, bro.
Yeah,
it was real.
I remember when I heard about it, it actually like really put me aside. Like I really refused to like believe it or like hear about it.
I was bummed for days and days.
Yeah.
Bro. I still really think about it sometimes. Like I'll see a movie of his or something up, and I'll just be like, man, bro, that's a good one.
Go to Good Will Hunting.
I was just gonna say Good Will Hunting was Doubtfire.
Patch Adams, right?
Patch Adams is a good one.
Doubtfire, obviously.
Yep. Classics.
Most of them he played a gay guy in Palm Springs. That's a good movie. I just watched that movie like earlier this year. It was so, I can't believe I went so long without watching that movie. It is perfect.
Birdcage. Hook is another favorite of mine. Obviously his performance in Aladdin is legendary. Dude, like that kind of stuff. Oh, you know which one is I really love that people don't talk about it enough is he did like at least two different characters in Happy Feet. Yo, he does these two different penguins. He does the one little Mexican penguin, and he does the one who's like, I am Lovelace. And he's got like the thing like stuck on his neck, and all the girl penguins are like in love with him. He's like, come to me, my lovelies, or whatever. Like, dude, like Robin Williams doing like this like super sultry penguin, and then like he's also the little Mexican guy. Like, it's just so funny, bro. So funny.
One of my top favorite things on YouTube is looking up his interviews on Carson. I mean, bro, you want to talk about a person with confidence? Yeah, if you want to talk about what that definition of confidence is, look at Carson's interviews all throughout his life. Carson was a motherfucker. He could make anybody sit down and act correct. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like anybody would walk in. Like who was the big guy?
He was respected.
Burt Reynolds back in the time was like fucking the guy, right? He goes to sit down on Carson, and Carson, he looks like a little kid to Carson. You know what I mean? Robin Williams comes up, and then it looks like he's finally like up here. Like they're like literally talking to, like Carson literally just there like laughing. He can't. It's like he's talking to a best friend. He can't even.
Yeah.
He can do nothing.
It's not an
Nothing.
interview. They were just clowning
they're just
around.
talking. Oh my.
Yeah,
I'm
he was an
telling
unstoppable force, man.
Beautiful
he
soul,
did.
man.
Oh, dude, I miss him. It's good stuff.
Yeah, man. It's I get a beautiful note to end the podcast on, honestly. Just
Agreed.
yeah, just
some love for Robin Williams. And
yeah,
Jim Carrey.
love for Robin Williams and Jim Carrey, just because they really defined my childhood. I mean, Miss Doubtfire. Fígalo. I'm telling you, I do that all the time when I'm taking a shower.
and then when the little canary starts smoking, he's like, I cannot do this. I cannot. Oh, what a foul way for a bird to die. I don't want to get beak cancer. Oh, my lungs are blackened. It's like, dude. It's like his mouth isn't even moving, bro. You can't do that.
Homegirl has like the face wash on, and it drips into the coffee, and she goes like, "Oh, you're gonna drink that?" He goes like, "Oh, it's whipped cream, darling."
That entire scene only happens like that because the lamps in the studio were so hot that it was actually melting the frosting on his face, so he just rolled with it. Oh my god, it's so good. It's so good. Dude, on that to wrap it up on this whole thing, Jim Carrey also put out a book recently. I forget what it's called, but it's written by Jim Carrey, so it should be easy to find. And the whole idea is that he tells like true stories, but he just like packs them full of like nonsense and lies and imaginary stuff. So like you don't know like what's real and what's not. Great book. Really a lot of fun. Dude, thank you so much for having me, man. Like it feels like this like flew by. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. And there was actually a couple things I didn't even want to talk about. But the moment you talked about all the music composition things, I was like, oh my god, no one appreciates music anymore and soundtracks. It's so I've had full solo episodes talking about it. So
if you've ever looked at like special features and stuff where you can watch scenes that have been cut from the movie or whatever, they don't have any score to them. Try watching those scenes and seeing like how flat a lot of them come out, and you're just like, what's missing here? What's missing is music, bro. Like a lot of times that music just kind of elevates everything that you're doing. That's what that live stream is going to be about, man. But in the meantime, we have a whole bunch in the works. Before we get to that one, go ahead and put in your submissions for the contest. Yes. All are welcome to enter. Please, I want as many entries as possible. But in addition to that, keep coming back on Sundays for Livestream Sunday, because this Sunday, like I said earlier, we're talking about marketing. But then in April, we're going to do a whole month just on world building. So we're going to have like 3 different episodes on world building with different people, including a friend of mine who works for the State Department. And she's lived in 5 different countries over the last couple of years. And so she's going to talk to us all about like different real cultures and real political views and real religious views and all these different people that she's encountered in places that she's lived in. And we're going to kind of draw from that for world building as well. And if you're looking for publishing stuff, I've got an interview with Greenleaf Book Group coming up on the 13th of April. It's on a Tuesday. It's at 4 p.m. This is a big one because everybody has the 2 camps, the traditional publishing and the self-publishing. They are in the middle, where they want to give the author creative control and rights to their creative properties, but they want to help you with the publishing stuff. They're going to get you your editor. They're going to get your book in stores. They're going to get you a boss like cover artist and stuff like that. They're going to help you with all that stuff that as a self-published author, you might have to skimp on a little bit because you can't afford all the really nice stuff. And then your book suffers. They're going to help you out with that stuff. And she's coming on to answer questions about that whole process and everything. Lots of cool stuff coming up. Check out booksbyadrian.com for all the details, man.
And Shadows of the Spark coming soon. I'm telling
December.
You. Well,
fingers crossed.
Fingers
December.
crossed. And if not, I'm telling you, that anthology series is coming with you. There's the blogs. There are every Sunday the live stream on YouTube. Make sure Books by Adrian. And there's obviously the Instagram. Make sure you connect with them. Everything that you got to do. Adrian Santiago, it has been an absolute honor. Do you have any last words for the people?
Thank you very much for having me, everybody. This was a blast, and I can't wait to do it again. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I'll actually be on April 25th episode for the world building, so we'll hop on that.
That's right. Yeah, we're rounding out the night. The third, you're on the third one, the grand finale.
Yeah, I cannot. That's going to be a really fun panel. I just world building is one of my favorites. So
It'll be fun.
thank you again for that. It's going to be a phenomenal episode. This was a phenomenal episode. Great recording, absolute fun. This is the end of the podcast. AR's Tales, aka the ART podcast. I am AR Mirabal, Adrian Santiago. This has been awesome. Peace out. We will check up on you next Wednesday.